Good morning, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ and welcome to your Good Friday forecast update for the Australian weather picture this March 29th, 2024. Taking a look at Australia nationwide right now, you can see it is looking relatively calm. There's a couple of thunderstorms here and there up across far northern Queensland and the Cape York Peninsula, but nothing too crazy. They are some strong storms, however, and they have delivered some heavy rainfall to certain locations overnight. The next round of thunderstorms is going to come from this cloud band over here, which is located between Warburton and Kalgoorlie in remote Western Australia. Now that's expected to move into South Australia and the Northern Territory this afternoon and evening and promote some pretty strong thunderstorms. And you can already see as the sun rises, it promotes some convective activity. There's some storms starting to develop. All of that plus more coming up in today's tropical weather update. We've also got two tropical lows as well, which could become tropical cyclones. So make sure you are sticking around to the end of the video to get your full forecast. Let's start things off up in far northern Queensland with these thunderstorms up here before we take a look at those thunderstorms for South Australia, and then we will move towards those tropical lows later on in the video. But taking a look at these thunderstorms, you can see they have withered away overnight, but still some thunder showers here and there, especially just outside of Cairns. And taking a look at the radar imagery, you can see that there is actually some very heavy rainfall starting to move ashore around the Cairns area right now, which is soaking areas between Port Douglas down towards Innisfail. And yeah, it's certainly going to be a wet morning there. I did say that Friday was going to be the wettest day. We're probably going to be seeing up to or maybe above 150 millimeters for some locations here in tropical far northern Queensland. This rainfall is actually quite fast moving for tropical rainfall. It is moving through at some speed, but considering there is just so much of it and it is continuing to develop this morning along this trough line, we're likely going to be seeing higher than expected rainfall accumulations. From what the Bureau of Meteorology has been saying, I would say up towards 150 millimeters can be expected for areas around Cairns. Cairns itself probably going to be seeing 60 to 80 millimeters today, but it's locations such as Blendon Kerr, Innisfail, Fishery Falls, Port Douglas even, those sort of areas, I'd be saying up towards 150 millimeters. Just looking at the current radar right now, that is quite reasonable at this time. That's already on top of the maybe 15 millimeters or 20 millimeters that they have had already today. I know it is very early on in the morning when this update is being recorded. Those are for reasons I will explain later on in the video, but you can see we are still expecting that rainfall to continue and probably pick up and peak at around 10 or 11 a.m. local time before slowly easing off in the evening. It could pick up again Saturday morning. We'll likely see another round of showers similar to what we've seen at this morning, very early on Saturday, probably at around 3 or 4 a.m. local time, but again, nothing ridiculous through here, and it should ease off for good by Saturday evening, which is tomorrow evening. And then, yeah, it looks like it's going to be remaining dry for the next couple of days. In fact, Easter Day remaining bone dry for tropical far northern Queensland by the looks of things. It's just other spots on the Cape York Peninsula that might be receiving some rainfall up towards Thursday Island. And this is associated with the strengthening monsoon trough, which is going to be developing that tropical low, which will move into the Gulf of Carpentaria. The forecast is still uncertain on that system. And this tropical low will also connect to a system that could develop in the West Australian waters as well. So we do have two potential tropical lows towards the end of next week, and I do believe the chances, especially for the West Australian system, are reasonably high, and certainly something that we should be watching quite closely, that is for sure. Let's dive down south now and take a look at potential thunderstorm activity for South Australia, Western Australia, and also the Northern Territory too. There is a bit of a cold front moving through Western Australia at this time through the lower west region. That would explain why we've just had a 12-degree night. It was chilly, it was. Certainly not used to that. And this sort of dry line in front of it will be promoting thunderstorm activity in towards Western Australia this evening or this morning and into this evening from some humid air masses that it is dragging in from the north. But it is going to be concentrated in South Australia. Certainly going to be a widespread thunderstorm event in South Australia and into New South Wales and Queensland as well. And you can see that these storms could actually be quite strong come Saturday evening and then into Sunday morning, I do believe as well. It looks like they fire up for round 2 Sunday afternoon before dying off, quite early on Sunday afternoon as well. And then that should be it for thunderstorms across South Australia. So it's really only going to be a 1 to 1.5 day event where we have 36 hours of some stormy and turbulent conditions across very remote parts of South Australia. the Northern Territory and Queensland, affecting communities such as Moomba and Birdsville. Locations such as Cooperativa, Undatta, Roxby Downs, and some other places in South Australia, more populated areas, that probably won't be affected by these thunderstorms. In fact, they're expecting to be high and dry. Lay Creek and Marie are kind of touch and go places right now. I know very remote locations. Marie probably will receive some rainfall from these thunderstorms, but I really don't see too much falling there. Into the Northern Territory as well, it looks like Alice Springs will also remain quite dry as well from these thunderstorms. We'll just take a look at rainfall accumulation to make this a lot easier. We'll use the Eastern WF model because it does have a higher resolution, but it does look like the only places that get significant rainfall is Birdsville, Moomba, and maybe Tibooburra as well in western New South Wales, and it looks like remote Queensland really just doesn't receive. They do receive some rainfall, but it's very hard to pinpoint exactly what communities are expecting the most. Rainfall will become more, predictable and more certain the further north you get, especially up towards Mount Isa, along the Queensland and Northern Territory border. The rainfall does become a lot more predictable from this thunderstorm event because it will be more widespread, but especially as you get down into the extreme dry parts of South Australia and the Northern Territory, the rainfall is just really difficult to predict. So the forecast that I'm making is very likely to be wrong for some locations here. I'm just giving it as a guide. I'm explaining what the models are saying here, but I reckon it's just going to be a come-as-it-goes sort of system. You're going to have to watch what radar imagery you can watch because there is poor radar coverage in this part of Australia, and kind of just make the best call for yourself in terms of what rainfall will be expected. But I do believe that it is a smart idea not to be playing in creeks, at least over the next 36 hours or 48 hours, depending on where you live, across parts of South Australia and Queensland that will be affected by this rainfall, because it's certainly the rainfall that could drive a bit of a flooding event through here. So make sure you are staying safe, and if it is flooded, remember to forget it, because there's no point in just risking your life or risking your property for something flooded that may not be recoverable at all. It will just end up being an insurance claim, and insurance is easier to deal with than a hospital after you drown yourself in a flooding river. So advisable just not to take any risks at this time. So across in far northern Queensland, I've really been giving this place quite a lot of attention over the past 10 days, but that's just because it's been such a hard forecast to make. And again, the models have completely flip-flopped. They've gone back to their forecast a couple of days ago where they weren't calling for much rainfall to be falling. I mean, they've still got an extra 100 millimetres towards the end of next week, but that's nothing compared to the extra 150 to 250 millimetres that they were calling for yesterday. And it looks like the majority of the rainfall has shifted further north. Now, why is that? That is because the tropical low on the forecast has weakened off significantly. Now, I know it is still about 8 days away, but it hasn't really been supported by forecast models since, and it has been dropped by the Eastern Blue Wave pretty much. The Eastern Blue Wave is still calling for something, and it will promote an onshore flow towards next weekend, which will be driving rainfall accumulations up across far northern Queensland, but it won't be too crazy in terms of rainfall. It won't be anything to write home about. It will just be an extra 150 millimetres or so. So again, nothing crazy there. It's the axis G3 that is still calling for this tropical low to really develop in the Coral Sea, of course, because it is the axis G3. And the reason why I am still confident in this system developing is the fact that the GFS is very happy with it forming. I mean, you can see it towards the end of next weekend. It's got a pressure of 999 millibars, so we're probably looking at a tropical cyclone here, especially by the way the GFS forecast things, and that will definitely be driving rainfall accumulations up. And it's forming in a very similar place to where Cyclone Megan formed as well. So again, it will have some very good conditions to be able to tap into as it intensifies through the Coral Sea. It will likely have a birthday party there, and we'll be able to get to a strong intensity up in the Gulf of Carpentaria, and could cause some impacts for far northern Queensland. Again, we're going to have to watch the forecast over the next sort of 8 days or so. It won't be till probably about next Thursday that we really know what's going on, but I can say with a degree of confidence that expect a tropical low to form in Australian waters. It's most likely going to be Western Australia, but if that system is weak, then we will likely see dual tropical lows at the same time, one in the Coral Sea and one in the West Australian waters. Again, so much is dependent on what the forecast models say tomorrow and the next day as well, so expect updates then. Now, switching things over to the Eastern Blue Wave model, you can see that they're still expecting the tropical low to develop by next Sunday for West Australia, but it looks like it's going to take an extra 2 or 3 days from where it is right now to become a tropical cyclone. So again, I don't think it's wise for me to commenting on what the Eastern Reef has to say, and it certainly doesn't look like it's going to be a West Australian land threat, just something that's going to be moving through the waters. The axis has something more robust forming, and it actually has it forming around next Saturday or so. You can see a tropical low starting to develop south of Bali and Denpasar there, and by next Thursday and Friday, it's really starting to wrap itself up quite nicely and very slowly intensifies right through next weekend into next Sunday evening, when it looks like it's pushing to become a tropical cyclone, but it looks like it's going to be fighting some pretty hostile environments. Just looking at this rain forecast here, it will likely be in a high wind shear environment. The reason I can tell is because the rainfall is very lopsided. It's not around the center of the storm. It looks like it's also going to have a very distinct outflow band, considering it's going to be connected to the monsoon trough here. So again, a signal that there will likely be high wind shear. And it also looks like it will be struggling with a little bit of dry air because it doesn't have an awful lot of rainfall around it on this forecast. So I'm not totally confident in this system forming here. I'm not 100% sure at this time. I do think that we do still need to wait and see. And a lot, again, is dependent on what this Gulf of Carpentaria system does, because dual tropical lows generally do create problems for each other in the Australian region, unless they are very small systems, which in this case, they don't look to be exceptionally small. We'll just have to wait and see. I think that's kind of the play at this point. I'm not going to be saying to prepare for anything until at least next Tuesday or Wednesday, and it's going to take a couple more days of forecasting to really iron out the specifics and the details on this system. Now, I believe for fun's sake, we should just go down south and take a look at what's happening on the winter weather front. I can tell you right now, nothing is expected for Perth. I've been watching the Perth forecast like a hawk, but look at what's happening across New South Wales, Victoria, and Tasmania. This is an event that we will be watching again. It's going to be in the 5 to 10 day forecast period, or actually kind of the 3 to 5 day forecast period for parts of Victoria. This will receive a lot more coverage in tomorrow's forecast update, considering it is fresh onto the picture. So there's a low amount of confidence with the forecast right now. But let's check and see if we've got any new snow for the next 10 days. It looks like the Axis is now pumping out some snow for Tasmania. The GFS also pumping out some snow for Tasmania. The Eastern Reef not quite, but it looks like they're going to try to in the next day or so. So it really does look like the snow situation is starting to become quite possible for parts of Tasmania, especially into New Zealand as well. This is looking quite promising for snow lovers here. We're likely going to see an early start to snow season 2024, probably coming in the start of April, maybe closer towards mid-April, but it looks like the first snows are not that far away. So get excited if you do live in mountainous areas. But yeah, certainly looks like next weekend we're going to see something like an East Coast low set itself up offshore from Sydney. And that will drive some very high rainfall accumulations and possibly some damaging seas and swells. This is kind of just an early warning, because East Coast lows you never know until a couple of days in advance, and this is about 8 days in advance. This will receive a lot more coverage in future video updates, but it looks like that we're probably going to be seeing something in terms of winter weather / East Coast low activity for New South Wales and Victoria. Anyways, that basically does it for today's forecast update. I'm sorry that it is so early on in the morning. I'm not sure if it's going to get pushed by YouTube at this time, but I haven't slept yet. I've just come back from the hospital, and I was also involved in a hit and run yesterday, so I had quite the day yesterday, and my car is currently not looking too good. I do thank you so much for watching these videos. It really does help out in life as well, and it really does fund me to be able to spend more time. I'm able to take a day or two off work now each week to really focus on improving the quality, and I do have some big things planned here. So I do thank you very much for watching these videos. It has helped me out a lot, and I don't want to say that it's life-changing yet, but it certainly is life-changing. Just over the past 3 months, the amount of support and attention that this channel has reached, and it's only like 13,000 subscribers, but again, I just want to thank you guys so much for the support, and you guys are the first of many to be subscribed to the channel. So thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for subscribing, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.